Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel and to part 3 of our livery series. If you missed part 1 and 2, make sure to go check them out on the channel. Part 1, we looked at everything from top to bottom in the livery editor, all the basics. And part 2, we did some basic fades and how to use fades in your livery. Make sure if you've liked that to like, share, and subscribe. And if you got anything to add or you want to see, maybe I know how to do it and I can make a video so we can share that knowledge with everybody. Today, we are going to be working on just basic tips and tricks. Some of them I've gone over in our previous videos. Some are going to be completely new that I haven't really talked about. Some we'll try to get specific on some things. But we're going to jump into this BRZ. Not only can you use it this week in Daily C, but also it's got some crazy angles and depths and stuff, which will really help show how some of these tips and tricks work. First, we're going to go to the rear wing. A lot of people have asked, and I've shared it in some of my live streams, but just a basic thing that gets overlooked because it's not really mentioned anywhere is working on the side wings. So let's go add a layer and let's do our view from either left or right. And then we're going to go pick any decal. I'm going to put it to the top for max example here, but you can put it anywhere, and sometimes people have troubles with this. It's the bleeding over. Lots of people have had this. Many people have just taken it to mask over with another decal to match the wing, but you don't have to do that. Much simpler way is you go all the way over to the left to this projection range. You hit limit angle, and you just go down to -3. That's the magic number for almost any of them. If it's still somehow bleeding, you can always still play with it a little more. But -3 works almost all the time for me when I'm just choosing decals or something like that. We will go again. Let's set to the left. And you can pick something like just you want to mask off this whole side and make the outside wing white. Well, the rest of the wing is that carbon. You can do that the same way. Go over to projection range, hit that -3. It looks like there's a little bleed over here, and you can just bring it down and play with that. You can also play with the depth a little bit too to make sure it doesn't come over. I kept it at -3 there, but you can play around with the depth too when we're using left and right because the depth is what also will go over. But eventually you can get to where you just have that. -3 is the sweet spot, but sometimes when you're working with the full color, and it's all the wing dependent on the car too. So sometimes you just have to keep playing with these. But the tips and tricks are play with these limit angles, limit depths. I would first start with looking right straight at it with either the left or the right camera. Sometimes on these wings they're funny, and sometimes putting a like a square decal like this on at an angle will help too. So if you need to, give that a try. I don't want to make the video too long playing around with this. Catch me in a live stream if you want to watch me completely mess around with decals on a wing or a specific spot because you can get really in depth to trying to clean it exactly up. Most of the time this will do. And if you're doing a solid color on the wing, on like staying with this carbon, you can get something like this and then still mask off if you need to a little spot that might show. Like say we're still here at -3 and that little, you can mask that off. In this case it's carbon. If you're really trying to keep the carbon, I just go down a little bit. It's not quite as clean, but it still works. But play around with that. That's the tip and trick on the wing, is play around with the limit angle here. A lot of today's tips and tricks is probably going to be messing around with these limit angles and limit depths. This one specifically is on the wing and wing decals. With that in mind, let's go to, I think it's on the body one. Yeah. On the BRZ, the body one, you can see This actually doesn't go under too much. Let's see if there's a spot back here. I know on the WRX, it's a really, I bet we can put something here for the example. So we're going to go back, body, align it exactly with the left. Let's pick another decal. The decals don't matter. They all kind of work the same-ish for these type of things. But let's say we want this decal just on this outside here. It could be anything. And this works for all different types of cars where you have these different layers. You see it bleeds through there, kind of looks funny. What car livery is going to throw a sticker on right there out here and it also put a sticker away back there? None. We're going to do the same type thing we did on the wing. It's the same concept, same type of trick, but just showing it on the body. We're going to go over to projection range. And in this case, let's try doing the depth first, because the depth is what, goes all the way through. We can play with the depth and completely get rid of it. Just go until you need to. Now, sometimes you need to go pretty far, and you will notice that it starts doing like this type thing where part of it is still there and part's not. If that's the case, try to play with both the limit depth and the limit angle. Again, I don't want to go too in depth on the video because I'm trying to keep these short format. But if I'm doing a livery stream and you got a question about it, ask away. But again, normally the answer is keep trying to play around with the limit angle, the limit depth. Sometimes helping changing the projection range from align with surface to align with camera can also help. See how this actually changed and now you see it again? Sometimes it works the opposite, and if you change to the other one, it goes away. So give that a shot. The only other thing I can say on this is if you're still having troubles, maybe putting it on at an angle instead of being perfectly left or perfectly right, putting it on at an angle and then doing the same thing with a projection range. Limit the depth. Because if you're putting it at an angle, this decal's going kind of kitty corner now through the car instead of all the way over to the exact same spot if you're aligned to the left or to the right. So that can help too. So if you need to, put it on a little bit on the side. Next up, let's work. I mean, let's actually talk. I have on my list, let's talk about putting things on left and right. So let's go back in that same decal. We were at an angle, and this is what I talked about before. Being at an angle, it actually is in a different spot there when it is through. It was closer to the back of the car. So putting it on an angle actually changed probably what depth and stuff we change it at. It can also, I don't know if this will show it enough, but also putting it on an angle compared to left and right can also just skew your decal a little different. It's tough to tell on this decal, but it's on there a little bit different. I use putting stuff at an angle a lot, like when you're working on over tire decals. It will look different if you put it on like up here compared to putting it on down here. Let's just go to add van real quick. Grab a decal. I'm going to see if they have any angled ones first, and then I'm just going to pick one. It doesn't have to be like it's going to go over the tire. I actually have one of my favorites, so let's go there. Right here. So if I was looking at the left and then bring it up here, this is just a rough example because on the BRZ it's actually flat. A lot of cars, it has that slight angle up here. You see how when I put it up here, it thinks we're going to put it on directly left to right. And so when we look up here, it's kind of got a funny skew now. It's kind of hard to put around there. It doesn't really look like the decal we had. And again, this is kind of a poor example because it's on the BRZ for this one. But we could do it you could make that work if you wanted to. but on a normal other car. But if we go and we add a layer while we're up here, the decal is going to look a lot closer to what it was when we picked it. I just picked the wrong one. Well, here's an example of, we've talked about this in another one, but here's another actually good tip. Say we have a decal and we want a different one in the same spot. Press triangle, and we'll go down and replace that decal. And then go pick the decal we want to place. I talk about that a lot, and it's going to still be in one of my tips coming up. But we might as well talk about it. But now look, when you put this on, that is more what it looked like. It's not all skewed, and so sometimes that will help get the look you want. Play around with the camera angle of how you put stuff on. Like I said, this case is a little different because normally we'd be working more on angles like this over the wheels, over the tires, instead of a completely flat surface. But the same thing, you can see it's going to change its skew probably depending on what angle we put it on. So let's delete these. Let's move on. Since we just talked about replacing, a duplicate and replace is one of the biggest tips, and I've talked about these in other videos because it's such a huge tip. We're just going to put a big logo on the side here. And so what I'll say about this is when you're out there searching, if you see stuff that says base and or background and fill or base and they number it like 1, 2, 3, or base, middle, top, or just layers, you see layer 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. All of those type of things are probably meant to be put on at the same time. So what I do is I try to look for somebody who has the same name, who shared something that's like background and fill, or sometimes BG and fill. I know of one that I'm going to use right now, but just keep that in mind when you're looking through stuff. If you're looking for things that are like background and fill, you can choose your own color on any of these logos. That's where this tip is really handy. You can use, duplicate and replace for a lot of things, but this one's huge. So this is one of Joe Collins' early PHG logos. And see how we have heat. So in this case, he names it fill and background. And this is what I'm talking about looking for. I look and see his same username and that it's background and fill. They're tough to see out there because when you search for stuff, there's a lot of stuff, right? But you can find some. And sometimes just going into their profile too, you will find the fill because they shared them at the same time. So we're going to pick the background. Let's pick the background. And let's make this any size we want. And let's even skew it a little bit. Because the best part about this is everything you do to this decal will transfer to the next one. So how big I just made it, how I skewed it and kind of angled it a little bit, all of this will go to the next one. So we placed it. Do we like that it looks good here? I think we like that. We're going to go and duplicate it on the same side. Now, we're going to go to the top one because this is a background, so it should be the bottom. We're going to go to the top one. We're going to hit triangle, which brings up our menu. This is where we go down to the very bottom, go to replace decals, and we're going to go back and get my fill. So let's put in PhD again. Go to that same page, and we're going to put the fill in. Voila. Joe Collins made this so it is even outside border. You can make this PhD logo any colors you want now. And it was just as simple as that. I just did a duplicate and replace, and now we could change the colors. We could do whatever we want, and it's clean. And you can do that on so many different things. Let's go to, is it other? Yeah, it's other. Let's go to other. Let's go on here. You can do this for just tons and tons of layers. Over and over, it gets like, totally repetitive. I'm going to throw a black background on here. I didn't know it went all the way up to the roof on this car, but it does. That's all right. That's perfect. And so all you need to do is place your first decal on, and then you're good to go. I did this live on stream. I did this really cool owl logo where this is another example of when you go out and search and you see stuff. Normally they name them the same, but look at this. It's named 14 of 20. 20 of 20. So if you put all of those in there and you duplicate the first one 20 times and then you replace it in order. Do it in order because a lot of people share them in the order they should be in. Put them in their order. You'll get a full picture. This is a really cool owl. I'm not going to do it right now. If you want to see an example, I will share the stream that I did it. But those are the type of things where this tip really comes in handy. It's a really cool thing that you can get awesome decals where they had to split it because PD only lets us share in such a small size. But it's also really cool for just these simple fills like this one. I think the next part I'm going to hit on is we're going to go on the body. And this is a very simple tip, but it's very helpful if you want just clean lines, just a very simple, like, livery idea, I guess we'll call it. You want something clean cut. Lines. Make sure you pick left, right, just so it keeps it in line. And we're going to work on two things here. Clean lines and also what we've talked about in previous videos is using our depth and our angle to project onto the other side because they kind of go hand in hand in this case. So we're going to pick, because I'm just going to do lines, we're going to pick a square. We're going to go over here, projection range, change it to align with camera. Move your limit angle all the way up, your limit depth all the way up. Now it's going to project onto that other side of the car. And we're just going to do something like these clean, I'll just call them clean racing lines. I'm going to make it go all the way around. Although on the BRZ, I'd probably, if I was doing a full livery, I see it's projecting on part of this back corner back here. I would probably change that and paint something over that. In this case, we're just trying to get the idea of clean lines. This wraps around the whole thing. You can get a clean line that wraps around the whole car. You can make it bigger, smaller, anything. Just that, it was just that simple. It's a straight, perfect line. If you want another, say, smaller racing line, I would work off of this decal, duplicate it. Let's move it up. Let's go. We want a thinner top stripe, like that. Bam. That's simple. You start throwing like numbers, a big sponsor logo, small secondary sponsors on here, and you've already got kind of a cool, clean looking race car. Like it's just a clean, easy style. Being able to just do straight lines like that, that mirror through by using projection range, aligning with camera, because that's going to keep it straight, and turning the angle all the way up and the depth all the way up is so big. Let's just, for sake of it, because maybe you're not looking for straight, a perfectly straight angle all the way through. Let's show you what it looks like in a different color. Let's just do green, so it's very highlighted. Let's bring it down. We are this time not changing. I'm going to try to line this up just for purposes of being the same. Okay, it's pretty lined up. It's not going to be perfectly lined up because we are not going to change this time to align with camera. We're going to keep it with the surface. You can still do lines this way. The surface, though, will change sometimes how the line is following. You see now how it's more aligning with the surface. So when there's different angles on the car, that line is going in different waves. You can use this on different parts of the car to be beneficial for putting on some of the decals. But if you're looking for a clean, just straight line, you want to make sure you change to the align with camera. But in some cases, align with surface is really going to work if you do want it to like wrap around a wheel well somewhere in a specific way. So play around with that if you need to. It will not work. Align with surface will not work if you want to project onto the other side. See how even turning up angle to 10, depth to 10 with the surface will not wrap it around. So that's why I say if you want those clean lines, make sure you're looking left or right perfect on the camera and change to align with camera and then up your depth and angle. Um, it's just an easy way to just have a clean look car. Just in general, a really clean looking car just by doing that. The last part today I want to touch on is changing our decals. And I mean that in not only is this a good tip because some people overlook this, you can change your decals from glossy to semi-gloss to matte to powder decals. You can't really tell a big difference when this is this blue on white in here. But when you're doing some things with chrome or other colors, you will see a difference. So we're going to do a quick example. We're going to delete these. We're going to go out. Let's grab, uh, let's paint everything. Let's go grab I think red chrome or black. One of these chromes will be a good color choice. Let's use this red chrome. And let's go back to decals. We're going to just use a big square again. Change align to surface to camera, our angle way up, our depth way up. We're going to line this all the way across and kind of make a cool little line. We're going to do the opposite of basically what we just had. Put that one here. We're going to duplicate it and come down here to the bottom. Duplicate again. Just do something like that. So now you have everything kind of masked off and you're using this pop of color underneath. In this case, it's chrome. Now everything's glossy, so the gloss doesn't counter that chrome as much as it could. But if we change to semi-gloss, it'll start, and it's hard to tell in here. Let's grab black. I use a lot of black. I probably should have just put these on as black, but the white pops with that red. But now you see how the semi-gloss, since it's shiny, doesn't really have, the red doesn't have that effect as much. But you change to semi-gloss, which is a little glossy, but it's closer to matte. It's starting to pop. You got that matte, it really pops. Powder decals, I don't use a lot of powder decals, but you can. It pops even more. So I love semi-gloss and chrome or candy type paint finishes, but just do not forget about this. You can change the decal paint. People don't normally think about that with the glossy or the chrome paints underneath. They're like, how do you get those effects? And it's because you mask stuff off to get those effects. And one of our classes coming up, we're going to deal with negative decals, which is a lot of masking. So it's going to be kind of the same concept. So you mask things off, you get this pop, let's go out here into the preview over here, and you can change the background by hitting triangle to look at how it catches and pops in different colors. Well, I shouldn't say different colors, but different weather conditions. And now you really see, especially if you spin, how that chrome is completely different than that. This one's semi-gloss. Let's go back out, and we'll put on the matte, and we'll do the same thing. Preview, hit Y to change your background, and you can look and see just how different it hits. So that's such a huge tip, is playing with your decal color or your decal style in contrast to your paint underneath. And it doesn't have to be in contrast. I do some that don't contrast and it's gloss with chrome because it still contrasts some. It's a chrome paint compared to just glossy. But it really helps things pop. You can turn just a simple livery here with a few lines on it and a few sponsor decals into what is a work of art that's all your own. Just all your own. And it doesn't have to be overly difficult. You know, some clean lines, big sponsors, small sponsors, just fill it out. And in no time you can have your own livery that's all yours. And you're going to start learning. You start doing these simple ones, start working with those lines. You're going to start thinking of other things. And some of these easy tips and tricks can go a long way. And like I said, use these colors underneath to pop. So for the most part, I think that is class 3. We're going to move on from here. I just wanted to hit a few tips and tricks. From here, we're going to use some of those. So at least now you have a way to come back, relook at just the tips and tricks by themselves. And we'll move on from here and do a few different kind of techniques or styles I use. We'll probably do a couple of those before the series and the classes are over. And the rest, just make sure you go back whenever you need to, um, and check those out. Again, you might find something you missed the first time. In the meantime, make sure to check me when I go live. I do create some liveries on stream where I will also take questions while I'm going. Um, I will not only take questions there, but I also go over tips and tricks as they come up, which sometimes is a lot easier. I like having short form so people can go back and watch this. I also like having long form because it lets anybody ask at any point. And if I can answer it right there on point, I will. And and they're just relaxing streams. So come jump on in. I also do live stream racing when I can. Um, so make sure you drop a like, share it, subscribe, and if you have anything you want to see, drop comments. I'm not kidding about that. Drop comments. If I can, I will help. I might show it in a video. So keep on bringing those comments, and we'll catch you next time. Thanks for checking it out.